Hey, in a news update for April the 14th, 2017, Saturday edition, morning edition, we've got a lot to talk about, folks. So pull up a chair and get some coffee. And whenever you look at this and you get to hear what we're talking about, big events, major events happening. Japan or China is is making plans for an emergency event in their area. Flights have been diverted or have been changed to not even go near or around North Korea right now, for that matter. Uh, Lots of people, even South Korea, are also evacuating the area. They're making plans right now to evacuate people in both North and South Korea because of possible missile or war strikes from other countries like America or Korea. A bomb was lit off over Afghanistan today to expose, or it was not today, but yesterday, sorry, yesterday, to expose, or I could say probably Thursday was when the bomb was lit off, to expose it was a non-nuclear bomb. It was a bomb coined as the Moab bomb. It's MOAB bomb. And it was non-nuclear, and it was a success. And what it did is expose all the troops that were underground there, that was settlement or encamped there, and killed lots of soldiers there, which is good because they were trying to sneak in and trying to sabotage things over there and cause problems for the U.S. civilian workers as well as the soldiers there that were in base or that are around in the area. So I think they put a big dent in the ISIS network there in Afghanistan. Also, there was an incident that happened here at Harbor Square today. Patricia Taylor, or Taylor, I guess it's Patricia Taylor, uh, actually had some papers of a tenant by the name of Susan who used to live here. They were personal papers today. We saw it all on the cameras outside. Police came at Friday morning around 10:30, and they demanded that Susan hand over papers. I'm not Susan, but Patricia Taylor to hand over papers that she had of Susan's. Apparently, her excuse was is that Patricia said her excuse was that Susan just abandoned them. Well, there were other times when Susan came over to see Patricia in the past, and she had plenty of opportunity to give those papers to her, but to no avail, she never did. So today it got to this point where the police were called to come out here to get the papers, and Susan was here to collect them. And that's pretty serious when the police are called for something like that. But it goes to show you that the people like that are not to be trusted. And of course, she lied. We got the audio. She lied. She said to the police that she shredded the papers. The police demanded to look at the shredder and found out that she did not shred them. So she had to hand the papers over to the police, and the police gave them to Susan. And Susan went over there and talked, with my uncle for a little bit, and talking about what happened and stuff. And of course, that I always knew that Patricia was not a person to be trusted. I knew she was a sly dog, and just like Barbara Poe, she too cannot be trusted. She lies a lot. She likes to manipulate and intimidate people and try to brainwash people with her lies and propaganda. And they both associate with each other. Both Barbara Poe and Danny and Patricia all are in the same boat together, and they're all bad people. And like I said, the fruits are definitely starting to show. And like I said, they will, and they're going to. So, what I'm saying is if you're associating with Barbara Poe or Patricia Taylor, the people that live over here, you don't want to do any kind of business with them or any kind of discussing any personal information because it cannot be trusted. It's like I've always said, I know how to read people very well, and the fruits are definitely starting to purge and starting to be revealing of that. So, like I said, be careful who you associate with, and wherever you are, whether it's here or in the world, anywhere. And make sure you know who your people and who your friends really are, because sometimes friends are not who they appear to be. When you put your children in danger with people and get trying to put them in sometimes we make bad decisions as parents and think, oh well, maybe these people are better, and that these people are more harmful and they cause more psychological problems than what they're really worth as part of being a friend. But yet maybe you make a bad decision because maybe you have problems yourself, and maybe you just don't want to deal with the problem, so you put it on somebody else. Some people do that. If you're like that, you should try to get counseling and try to deal with the problems on your own, not try to get other people to pick up the baggage, because that's the worst thing to do, because they don't know about your kids like you do. They don't know all about what they've been through, and when you throw somebody and subject them in another environment, when somebody could be real abusive because they got a bad temper, and they're not very stable mentally, and they have emotional problems, it's not a good thing for children to be in an environment to grow in or to be around someone like that. So, think about that. And of course, I say this from the bottom of my heart because I care. And I don't want, anybody's kids to be subjected to someone like that, whoever they are, because they don't need to have kids around them when they're like that anyway. So, but, in the news, as we're talking about, this Moab bomb put a hole in the ground over Afghanistan that looked like the width of about 3 or 4 football fields. And it looked like it definitely did its job. It was a non-nuclear bomb, so it was not nuclear in nature, but it was a success. And that was on Thursday, just to go back with that. And also, tensions are definitely heating up with North Korea and China and with the U.S. and Russia. And they say all these countries all are talking about war, with each other or with others. And even Syria also is in the mix too. There's a lot of things going on with that. A lot of people say that the chemical attack there in Syria was a false flag. It was fake. It really did not happen. Because that's what a lot of intel is saying, like from Dabu 7 and other people have said that in InfoWars. Now the mainstream media is not going to report on any of this stuff because they don't want to tell the truth. Because remember, they've been bought out, they've been sold out, so you're not going to hear anything about this stuff at all, because they're not going to talk about it. But the real independent media, the truth media, not the fake newsers out there like CNN and the local news, is starting to tell a lot of fake news too. Some, so you got to be careful because they don't always tell you the truth either. Your local news actually does a better job, but they still tell some fake news too, because they're all been bought out. And as events get more intensified, we're going to see more of that happening, folks, where they're not going to tell you the truth about anything, and they're not going to even report on it. Like, you don't hear much about what's going on with Korea. I mean, they're having war exercises in China right now, and they're having war exercises in Korea right now. I mean, tensions are really getting volatile. They're really getting hot. I mean, red. I mean, something could go off at any time. That's one headline actually describes it. Very, very, that's what it says. It really fits with the times. Comet may come close. An asteroid, a major large asteroid that hits the Earth comes around the Earth or passes the Earth every 400 years. This rather large asteroid could hit the Earth sometime around April 19th this year, and is set to hit us in another 400 years after it bypasses the Earth. It's not going to hit the Earth, but if I said hit the Earth, I mean bypass the Earth. It's going to bypass the Earth pretty close. It's going to be like within 3 times the distance of the moon is away from the Earth, so it may pass between the moon and the Earth as it passes on by, but it's not going to hit the Earth. So I want to make sure I said that clear. Will not hit the Earth, but it will come closer than most comets usually do, or big asteroids normally do. Trump also has talked to his team about discussing with NASA about possibly searching or probing the moon for natural valuable resources that are there found below the surface of the moon. We'll have to keep you up to date and see what happens after that. But it's if there's resources out there that can be, used, it would be a great thing to do because we could use some of those resources here on Earth if it's in the rock itself. Since the moon is a natural satellite that orbits the Earth, there may be some natural or valuable resources in the rock or below the rock in the surface of the moon. But like I said, that's what Trump is talking and discussing with NASA, about to see if there's if they could possibly do some, resource or recovery or exploration there on the surface of the moon. So we'll keep you abreast of that and see what happens there in regard with that. But America, we hear about the false flag in Syria, and we hear about the tensions between North Korea and China and the United States. Do you think there could be a false flag here? Well, like I've always said, and many of us have echoed, Dabu 7, Alex Jones, Drudge, all these, and I myself have always told you that you need to have a plan in place. You need to have a kit with water, medicines in it, money, gold and silver in case money doesn't work. So have some gold currency and silver in there. Have clothes for your provisions for your children, for yourself, and for your animals. Batteries. Have a hand crank, radio that you could use to hear and be informed of what's going on in case you have no power for a long period of time. One of those crank radios is a must, and have one of those flashlights that you shake that has a thermal energy in it, or either get one that is cranked as well, and you can have a flashlight, and sometimes they have a radio on there that's all in one unit, and it has a good flashlight on there, and you can just crank it to use it for a flashlight or for radio, or to charge your devices, like your phone or something. Some have that too, depending on how much money you spend on these kinds of things. Have a weather radio, have blankets, have medicine, a little kit in there to do basic wounds or injuries. These are things you should have in your arsenal at your disposal at all time. Well, today, as you know, we are asking for donations, and we really do need them here at the Silva's Media and New Hunter Church of Christ, where that's all the same place. We all need donations because we do news and we do church services and all, and a lot of people are not giving. Liking is great. Thank you for those who are liking our page. I really do appreciate that. But we really need your financial donations, your monies at this time. We have not been able to pay the rents because my check was not as big because of something they did. So I went ahead and fixed that, but it's going to take 45 days before they give me that money back to reimburse it. So if you all could help me with rent this month and next month, that would be great, because that's the part where I'm going to be short. So if you can do that, that would be wonderful. We need $400, okay? So if you all want to donate that money, you can write it off on your taxes for next year. You could give $10, you say 100 people gave $10, that would be way more than enough than what we need. People, if it just a couple of you all people just gave like $20, that would take probably what? Maybe 30, 40 people that could give $20. If it's $10, and it'd take probably about 80 or 90 people. But we've got like 400 or 500 people that watch our Sunday morning services, and nobody gives. And I always ask, and I wouldn't ask if I didn't need it, and I'm not using it for my bills. I'm using it for the church bills. The internet to stream this stuff out to you costs money. The power, the light that's in the background, all that stuff, the computers. The computers, see, it's like a little studio in here, but all that stuff costs money, and that's where you come in, and because we're doing this as a ministry and a labor of love, but we can't do it for free. I talked to my cousin about possibly helping me with the rent this month, and he was like, he was very apprehensive. He was like very discouraging and very judgmental, and he was saying, well, you need to sell some of your stuff off, and you need to figure out how you're going to do that. Because, he basically implied that he was not going to be able to help me, or the church that I used to go to was not going to help me as my home church. And they said, they're not going to be able to help you either. So, it wasn't very nice. But, most families are like that because they always like to judge you and see you how you used to be. And they don't realize that you have a ministry too, just like they do. And they forget about that, So they like to quickly judge and say things. Without really looking at the facts that you're doing the same thing that they're doing. Maybe a little different, because we have an online ministry here, whereas Paul Green does not. But we also have a real ministry here, too, in this community. And, the donations that you give, that goes towards all that, plus it goes to pay for some of the church bills here. Like Logo Software, for instance, I've been asking for help with that for Cocoon Age. If you want to give donations, just say what it's for, and we'll make sure it does get to that place where it needs to go. And it would really greatly engage and show what I'm doing. Liking my pages, please continue to do that. But please donate. It's so important, folks. I don't need to say it anymore, but please donate because we really need the stuff ASAP. Because donations have been down a lot this year. And, it's a sign of the times, but, people even in the sign of the times were challenged. They didn't make excuses, but they gave. They didn't keep buying into things and paying on things to keep up with everybody else. And that way they would have more money because they wouldn't be buying into things like that. So they could give more instead of just giving a little. Because even when we're told to give a tenth at the church, a lot of people still don't give a tenth. They give probably about 2% instead of 10%. And, that's because they're enslaved to all these car payments and mortgages and keeping up with the Joneses kind of mentality. And that's why we don't have as much money. And that's why people aren't giving like they should. A lot of that is why that is. We have to have the latest phone. We have to have the latest TV or the latest computer or the latest whatever. And really we don't. If you have an old computer, use it for 5 to 7 years. You don't got to keep buying the latest stuff. If it works, it might be a little slower than your friends, but hey, it works. You're saving money. And just use it for 7 years. That's what most people do. But, think like that. That way you can save money, but then you can be able to help people like us and other ministries like us who you trust with your monies and with your ministry and what you give as a blessing. I want to thank those that have given to us with clothing and food and things and money that have in the past, but they haven't given recently in the last 2 or 3 months. So please, I encourage you, please, to give. That way you can be blessed too. Even in these uncertain times, God still does do miracles. He does them every day. Just a lot of times we're not always aware of that fact because we're so caught up in our problems that we don't even see what God is actually really doing in the midst around us. But God is still doing miracles all the time. Every day you live, you could say is really a miracle in itself because it is. All right, well, this is some of the news that's going on right now. Also, in Rhode Island, there were like 3 residents that were kicked out of public schools due to the HPV vaccination program. These people were kicked out because they did not, or discovered when they looked at their records that they did not have, this was last week, in Rhode Island, all residents now are required by law, both girls and boys, teenagers, that's when they start getting the Pavilone vaccination, and they ended up kicking them out of school and treating them like they had the virus, like they were under quarantine. They weren't allowed to get around the students or anything, like they had a disease even though they were perfectly healthy. They were just being that way because they're trying to make something a way big deal out of something when really it's nothing. Besides, the person that found it and made the vaccine said it really wasn't a vaccine and it really was not stable and it caused a lot of problems with people. Like it made people have, like they started bleeding or they were bruised or they couldn't walk, or they had problems after they had the PV vaccination. So, you need to read the inserts and really do your background as parents. Don't just believe what the doctors tell you. Well, this is what you got to get. Like I know a lot of Sean Shields out there that just do what they're told, and they believe everything they're told rather than checking it out on their own and having an independent intellect. They just go out and just give their kids all these vaccinations. Then you wonder why, Jeremy has the problems that he has now, because it was probably due in part because of the vaccinations he's been given, because Sean's been so faithful in giving those vaccinations to all her kids, and that's why Stephen may have Allburgers or may have the problem he's got because of the vaccinations. So, and there's a lot of kids out here, not just the Shields that I want to spotlight, but they're just one out of millions of kids that have all kinds of problems due to these shots. So, that's just something to really think and bear and keep in mind. So anyway, this is in the news. Take care. I love you, and we'll have more news coming up. Independent News Media, Michael DeSilvas for April the 14th, 2017, Saturday morning edition. Take care now.